Oh, hey, everybody. Hi, it's me, Brian. And listen, I know I said I wasn't doing a show today. I put that out on X like about an hour ago because I had a bad headache last night. And I ended up falling asleep very late. So I woke up at like, it was already 10 o'clock, a little bit after 10 a.m. When I woke up this morning, I said, well, the hell with it. I'm not going to be able to get up and get into any type of coherent state and do a show. But amazingly enough, the headache went away in the last 30 minutes as I was scanning my X.com feed where I get all my news these days. And amazingly enough, I, I had to get on. I had to go ahead and do a show anyway to address something that I see happening that I've been talking about for a while. Okay. Trump has had such amazing success in these first 7 months now of being back in the White House, despite all of the globalist cults, you can refer to it as the Luciferian cult, all of their resources devoted to trying to keep him from coming back. Okay, they spent hundreds of millions of dollars, just like they did in the 2020 election. They spent hundreds of millions of dark money. Okay, they spent a lot of money. They committed a lot of personnel, a lot of time and resources in planning and strategizing to prevent this man, that guy right there, prevent that man from ever getting into a position ever again where he could cause difficulties for them. And here we are. Um, he came back anyway, and he won that election. And he came back into the Oval Office in January. And all of their worst nightmares are coming true right before their eyes. I believe they were telling themselves as recently as 4 or 5 months ago. Okay, yeah, this is gonna be hard to do. I mean, it's amazing we haven't killed this guy yet. It's amazing we haven't gotten rid of him. Then he's back. All right, yes, that's amazing. But I think we can finesse this. I think we're gonna be able to survive it. We have to follow the same playbook. We have to make sure he never gets real actual control of over half of the federal government. We keep him in our box. Okay, we keep the guardrails around him. It's very important. We keep him hemmed in and following the guardrails that we put up around him. Okay, so he can only do what we allow him to do. Okay, pretty much what we did during the first term, while we relentlessly spied on him and tried to impeach him and tried to browbeat him into resigning, until he's gone. I think we can finesse this, and I think they were telling themselves that right after the inauguration. We're going to survive this. Yes, it's going to be difficult, but I think we can manage it. Okay, now here we are. It's late August. He's already exposed so much. So many people are gone now. So many of the cabal people are gone. Everybody focuses on all those who remain, and we're going to get to that in a second. Okay, but what you don't understand is that when you're taking on something that is of this size, of this amount of influence that's been entrenched, deeply entrenched for this long. Okay, it's not like these people got here a couple of years ago. All right, they've been here a long time now. Okay, and they are entrenched. The roots go deep. You need to understand the roots go very deep. And now we're at the point where they're starting to realize Trump studied their playbook and he's figured out how he's going to get control of all of the federal government this time around. Not a quarter of it, not half of it, all of it. He learned the playbook in the first term. Okay, so here he comes now. We have two major fights shaping up in the last couple of days with Lisa Cook and Susan Monero. Let me see if I'm saying that. Monero at the CDC chick. Okay, Trump trying to fire two ladies. One works on the board of the Federal Reserve. They're called governors. He's the governor of the Federal Reserve Board. Okay, the other one is the head of the CDC, who's only been on the job 1 month. And when you know what the enemy's playbook is, you know what it is. It's see, they can't do the neocon the thing the neocons encouraged all the conservatives to do. You know, because the conservatives were out of power. The conservatives never ran anything in government. What do the neocons tell conservatives to do whenever there's a point of the cultural fight, the institutional fights? What do they tell you to do? What did they spend 40, 50, 60 years brainwashing conservatives to do? You retreat. This is not the hill to die on. We can't win this fight. We have to pick our fights. We have to retreat here. So one institution, one cultural thing after another, abandon it. Abandon ship. It's a smart thing to do. Okay. But these people can't do that. They already have control. They already have power. So when Trump wins, I mean, it's just mind blowing. Despite everything they tried, he won again anyway. Okay, in 2024, they can't say, "Oh, fine, you can have it," and just walk out and leave and wait for his term to expire and come back. No, they can't do that. They have to stay there. Just stay there. It's not like they say, "Fine, you want it that bad? I'll let you have it." You know, the people that tell me, "Hey, college football went woke. Some of the teams went woke." I don't watch college football anymore. It's like a point of pride. I abandoned that. But if you're a deep state cultist, you're a globalist cultist, you're one of these Luciferians I've been talking about, and you have control of a federal agency, you don't have the option to say, "Fine, here, take it. You can have it. I'll come back later after you're gone." Right? You can't say that. That's not a workable strategy. Oh, I'm a little tagline here. Look out! I've got coffee. I'm dangerous. You can't abandon anything. You can't retreat from the fight. You got to have the fight. You have to maintain control of these institutions and these agencies. You cannot just hand them over. And I knew eventually we were going to get to the point Trump was going to begin. Give me a second. Trump was going to reach the point where he was forcing these people to deliberately say, "We don't run our federal government according to the Constitution. We never have. Stop trying to make us do that." All right? I knew it. Eventually, we were going to get to the point that this was going to be dry up. People saying, "Hey, well, the president appoints these people. He appoints the people to the board. What do you mean he can't fire them?" Or they come at it from the angle, well, Trump to be happy with her. He appointed her. He appointed Powell. He reappointed Powell. You know, Obama appointed him first. He reappointed Powell himself later. He should be fine with it. Well, that's another thing people don't understand about how D.C. works and what Trump is doing. when you do not have sufficient leverage yet to get your own person into a position, you are forced to play along. Now, I had to explain this at length. And it was like, it's like pulling teeth. It's like, I hate having to do it to explain to people. Look at the RNC chair. Who did Trump endorse for RNC chair twice? Well, he endorsed Ronna McDaniel. He endorsed her twice. And people would say, well, what's he complaining about how corrupt the GOP is? He appointed that bitch twice. What's he complaining about? Well, excuse me. She wasn't really his pick. He was forced to pick her both times because the GOP board that votes to decide who he can endorse somebody. You don't understand? They say Trump picks the GOP chair. No, he doesn't. He can nominate somebody, or he can approve. He can give the nod to whomever the GOP board voted to hand the chair to. That's what he can do. Understand the difference? So the runner was never Trump's pick, and both times, that GOP managing board was so stocked full of GOP good old boy country club Mitt Romney clones. He was forced to nod and say, I agree, yes, let's nominate the runner. Reluctantly, he endorsed her twice. That's correct. Because he had no leverage yet. And what happened? What happened the moment he had enough leverage? What happened when he knew he could have that vote go the way he wanted to? Well, then he nominated somebody else. Not he nominated somebody he wanted there. Yeah. Along with his daughter-in-law as that guy's co-chair, and the runner was out on her ass. So if you don't understand how the game is played, how the game is rigged, and how you have to carefully position your forces and bide your time, and wait until you have sufficient leverage, and you can then force what you want. I keep telling people this. Trump is not interested in defeat. He's not interested in losing. You know what would have happened? What would have happened both those times? That Dorano was up to be nominated, and he said, "No, I don't like her. I don't want her. I want somebody else. I'm gonna nominate this MAGA, this red, white, and blue MAGA person to be RNC chair." What do you think would have happened both times if Trump had bothered to do that? What do you think would have happened? He watched that MAGA person go down in a anonymous, overwhelming defeat to the runner. Was he gonna put somebody in that position? Well, no. Calling somebody and, hey, Bob, come in here and you're gonna have no chance of winning. The deck is still stacked against us, but I'm gonna go ahead and nominate you for RNC chair against the runner. Go out there and go down very nobly in a blaze of glory. No. Trump says, screw that. No, Trump is not into kabuki theater defeat. He is not into that. All right, he is into winning. He wants to win. That's what he's about. Okay, so he gritted his teeth and he bided his time and he built his leverage to the point. And yeah, go ahead. Yeah, okay. I endorse the runner. I endorse the runner. And in the minute he had enough leverage to force her out of there, he threw her fat ass out, and she ran over to NBC News to get herself a cushy analyst job with the fake news that lasted about a week. And it was beautiful, man! Beautiful! Move slowly and silently and then strike like the fastest animal on the planet. That's what the guy does. But a lot of people didn't understand this at the time, so I had to explain it at length repeatedly. But he liked the runner. He picked the runner twice. No. Runner was the board's nominee, and he knew he didn't have enough support on the board to get anybody else's ass into that chair yet. Be accurate now, okay? Well, a lot of people don't understand this. So they go, well, look, he picked Jay Powell to be the Fed chairman, right? Yeah, he picked Jay Powell's his guy. Okay, so you don't understand anything about how that works. The board nominated Jay Powell. How much control does Donald Trump have over the board, which is going to vote who, if the president nominates somebody, yeah, he could, yeah, but the board, who does the voting? Who votes to say, yes, we approve this person as board chairman? What happens? I'm just going to carry over this example I just used of the RNC chair. What happens if back then Trump had said, "No, I like Jay Powell. Here's my MAGA guy. I want this guy to be chairman of the Fed." Does that person win the vote, or do they get successfully confirmed? Well, no, no, they don't. No, they don't. Got no leverage. Got no leverage. You you can nominate people till the cows come home. You're not getting anybody's ass in that chair. That is, they're gonna keep control of that chair and put their own globalist cult member in it. You see, that's you've got to understand this. A lot of people say, "Well, he's got the authority. He does the nomination." And the board puts up the nominees. Trump says whether he agrees with the nominee or not, or he could say, "Well, I like the board's nominee. I want to nominate this person over here," and then the board votes that person down overwhelmingly. And then what did Trump win from doing that? Well, he won absolutely nothing. He got absolutely nowhere. You see that? Okay. So a lot of people don't understand this. I don't understand why Trump didn't nominate his own MAGA person for the Fed chair, for the RNC chair, right off the bat back in 2017, 2018. Got no leverage. Couldn't have gotten anybody in there that he wanted. Until you get the leverage, you play along. Then the moment you have the leverage, you strike like the fastest animal on the planet. So that brings me to Lisa Cook and Susan Monera's CDC check that's refusing. They've both been fired now. They're both saying, "You're fired." They're both saying, "Hell no, we won't go." All right. And the CDC is now in open rebellion against RFK Jr. and Donald Trump. And I knew we were gonna wind up here eventually. See, because people, I brought all that up about the nominating thing. Well, we're following the Constitution here, right? Well, keep watching. Well, the Federal Reserve, that's constitutional, right? Well, keep watching. Well, the president has the authority to fire all these people, I mean, they understand that the executive branch, Article 2 powers, he has the authority to fire everybody that works for the federal government, right? Well, keep watching. You see, what he is drawing out, what he is making people pay attention to, is that this globalist cult and all the DC denizens, the swamp creatures, they give lip service to the Constitution, but they have not been following it. They don't follow it, and they haven't been following it for a long time now, to set up an alternative system, an evil, corrupt alternative system that they mostly have managed to keep out of sight until now. And what Trump is doing is he's literally forcing these goons to step out into the ocean, to step out into the open. He's forcing them to come out of the tall grass and into the daylight and explicitly argue with him. I don't care what the Constitution says. You can't fucking fire me, punk. Got that? I'm here and I'm here for good. I don't work for you. You cannot fire me. Okay? And he's forcing them to come out and not just say this to the news media to keep their jobs. What are they having to do? Lisa Cook already did it. File lawsuits in court. And Shipwreck Crew and some of these other legal analysts that I follow on X.com, they're really good at it. I follow Margot Cleveland and Shipwreck Crew and a couple of others. Very, very good at the lawyer stuff. They understand the court system and how it works. And that hearing is going on this morning for Lisa Cook's lawsuit, claiming that she cannot be fired by Donald Trump and she is refusing to resign. So this is what Trump is doing, and it's brilliant. And he needs to get a lot of others' business dealt with first before he arrived at this point. It's good that we got into the Treasury Department. We shut down their money. We shut down the Social Security Administration. We cut off the flow of funds to all these NGOs. I mean, there are a lot of things. All the wars stopped. You got all these wars that they were trying to get started up. You stopped them. Okay, there's a lot of things that had to be done that were really pressing. It had to be done, and he's been doing them over so much. The trade, the thing about the government being in a surplus and starting to get the government to a surplus. So the trade imbalances and the tariffs, all that had to be done. Okay, could not put that off, all right? And now it's reached the point where he's comfortable. So these people have been they just didn't announce the other day, they straightened up and they've been flying right and they've been following orders up until now. No, I'm pretty sure Cook and Powell and Maneras and a lot of these CDC people have been openly defying him for some time now, all right? But you got to do this in order. You got to have your priorities right. You've got to follow a strategy when it comes to this, trying to undertake something this big as a hostile takeover of the federal government. That's exactly what he's involved in. He is involved in a hostile takeover, all right? He's got to get all this other stuff done. Trade reset, tariffs, the foreign stuff with the wars, okay, and stopping the outflow of all that money being laundered, again, stopping the vote fraud. And a lot of people do not grasp this yet, but the Social Security thing was massive for vote fraud. He had to get all that done first. Now we're at the point, 7 months in. Now we've reached the point he can begin more fully exploring, as we've seen touches of it. But now he can begin fully drawing them out into the open. The fact that we have not had a constitutional federal government for over 100 years. That people came in there and they infiltrated it and they corrupted it and they spent 100 years talking shit like they were following the Constitution. Everybody gives it lip service. And that's just the point. This is the point I was making. People ask me questions like, well, the Fed is an independent agency. It's not answerable to the president. Yeah, find it in the Constitution. Where did it come from? How was it created? I mean, it's not a constitutional entity at all. And so people are starting to be forced in the absurd argument, well, it's not subject to the executive branch, and it's not subject, that's making this claim. Trump can't fire Powell. He can't fire Lisa Cook. He can't fire either one of them. They're being forced to explicitly come out and see they bullshitted everybody for decades. They were always able to avoid being pinned down on this, all right? Trump is pinning them down, he's hemming them in, and he's forcing them into the open. Well, the Fed isn't subject to the executive branch. The Article 2 powers of the Constitution do not apply to the Federal Reserve. They're coming out and being forced to explicitly state this after they did what? For about 100 years. Bullshitted everybody. That the Federal Reserve, is a federal agency that's subject to Article 2 powers, and the president nominates, it's all under the executive branch, but it's lip service. It wasn't real. It wasn't real. And they knew it wasn't real. Now that the president's actually trying to exert authority over the Fed, they're completely doing a 180. Well, we're not subject. The Federal Reserve is not subject to the president. Sorry. Okay, fine. Who are they subject to? There's 3 branches of the federal government. 3 co-equal branches set up in the Constitution. You have the executive, the judicial, and the legislative. Which one is the Fed under? And they have no coherent response. I remember once there was someone, I forget who it was. Somebody I follow, one of the lawyers, responding to one of these idiots trying to argue that the Federal Reserve isn't under the executive branch, so Trump can't fire a court. Great. Well, if it's not under, the Federal Reserve isn't mentioned in the Constitution, so let's grant your point that it's not under the executive. Is it under the legislative? Where is that? Is it under the judicial? Where is that found? It's literally an extra constitutional entity that writes federal regulations, enforces monetary policy. And when they were in complete control and no outsider ever got in there to the executive branch, start causing them trouble, start causing shit for them, they're able to finesse this and bullshit everybody and spin, the illusion that somehow they're following the Constitution and the Federal Reserve is constitutional and everything's fine here, nothing to see, people. But now that Trump is back and he's forcing the issue, the incoherency of what they've been doing, of how the system is actually run. So over and over again, he's done this. And now he's reached the point where he's going to show this about many of these federal agencies. They're not run according to the Constitution. They're not even constitutional, period. And they're using these agencies for all kinds of illegal shit. Okay? So you got to build up to this. First you show them how the Treasury Department sent out blank checks to everybody. They never turned down a spending request in 20 years. You show everybody that first. Show everybody all the foreign aid that nobody can track, all the NGOs around the world getting hundreds of billions of dollars every year that nobody tracks it. Nobody really knows what happens to it, where it goes, what it's used for. Nobody knows. And now it's up to the point where the comfortable fictions and illusions they've been feeding the public for decades about the Fed and things like the Department of Education and the CDC, Trump is at the point now, it's like, aha, okay, it's time to take this next step and show people how none of this is constitutional. They literally, while pretending that they were following the Constitution, they boldly crafted and constructed an entirely different government infrastructure that is extra constitutional, illegal, and corrupt to the core, corrupt down to the marrow of its bones. Okay, and it's time to end this. Okay, and that is a radical thing when you have to show Americans. While you were lured, okay, hold on. While you were lulled to sleep over the last 100 years by mass media that was controlled by these same people, while you were dozing because you were propagandized and brainwashed, these people that crept in among us and infiltrated our government literally abandoned the Constitution over 100 years ago, and they set up an alternative governmental system that is corrupt and not constitutional at all, and they use it to exploit us and oppress us and loot the hell out of us, okay? And this is what they've been doing, and now I need to end it, and this means I'm going to have to end entire federal agencies and reduce the size of the government by almost half, okay? That is a radical program for any president to have to present to the American people. I got basically half of our government is extra constitutional. It was created by these vile people that infiltrated us, and to create this other half of the federal government, they had to abandon the Constitution. Okay, and I'm going to put our government back under the Constitution, and that means one of the first things I have to do in order to make this happen, I have to expose how entire branches of the federal government are illegal and corrupt and being used as part of criminal enterprises to harm America's citizens, harm American interests, harm American national security. I have to show you this. And he is in the process of showing everyone this. And it's a massive, very difficult undertaking because it's a radical idea when he first broached it. I mean, he broached this to people back in 2017. Half of our federal government needs to be destroyed. Half of it. At least half of it. Here's how many hundreds of billions of dollars they're looting out of our treasury every year. The Fed isn't even constitutional, and the U.S. monetary policy and the rates are being set by a hostile foreign entity that has an American last agenda. Can you imagine Trump trying to convince everybody of this back in 2017? When he doesn't even have, he probably didn't even have control of even 1/4 of the government back then. How long would he have lasted if he tried to tell everybody that back in 2017? No, I don't think he would have lasted very long at all. But he's doing it now. He can do it now. because of the Great Awakening, because people are waking up and they're ready to hear now. Wow. Our government, what we call our federal government, is actually a massive criminal organization. Oh my God. What we call our federal government is actually a construct that abandoned our present federal government is not founded on the Constitution. It abandoned the Constitution over 100 years ago. And all the expansion of it since 1913 onwards, all the expansion of it was extra constitutional and was deliberately done, even though the people that were doing it, they knew it was illegal and it was unconstitutional. And they basically used mass media propaganda to trick the American public into going along with what they were doing. And for 100 years, I don't know, a lot of evil shit went on before 1913. Don't get me wrong. But 1913 was a key year in this because that's when decades of careful preparation, that's when they pulled the trigger. They actually, you go back and study the Fabian Society and all these different groups, especially those in the United Kingdom, that were determined to get their imperial influence back by surreptitious means. You go back and study all of that. It started in the 1880s, 1890s. And by the 1910s, they're ready to make their move. They've infiltrated enough, and they're ready to make their move to get their influence back. Sure, you Americans, you brag about how you ran the British out of here, back in 1776 or 1786. You ran the Brits out. Well, guess what? They came back. And they infiltrated. It's part of a global organization. It's not just the UK people. You got to look into the Prussian side of this too. Okay, it's a big globalist cult club. Okay, and we ain't in it. Yeah, 100 years ago, back in 1913, they pulled the trigger. We got all of our assets in place. We can pull this off. We're going to right out in the open now. But we got mass media. Got the radio. We got the newspapers control. We're going to get the public to go along with this. We're going to literally have their federal government abandon the Constitution and start changing itself into an illegal criminal enterprise right in front of them. But we'll program the public to think everything's fine and that this is normal. And that's exactly what they did. And they pulled that off. So they launched an income tax. They create the Fed. They launched World War One. Oh, and then they use all the helpless central banks that they spent decades creating. And they sell arms. They fund the war for all the different sides. And believe me, there were a lot of different sides in World War One. And when it was over, where were the central bankers sitting? Well, they were sitting on massive amounts of debt to all these countries. All these countries owed them. There was, in other words, phrase it this way: they were sitting on a massive amount of capital control of about a dozen different top nations in the Western world, because that's how you get control. You start conflicts, you loan out money to all sides. As their debt increases, your control over those governments increases. Doesn't matter who wins. It doesn't even really matter how long that conflict goes on. Just as long as the debts keep going up. One conflict ends, you go start another one. The debts keep getting, and nobody ever pays any of this off. The debts just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Gravy City. And as part of the Great Awakening, one of the biggest realizations that an American patriot makes is the realization that this government that I thought was looking out for me, this government that I thought cared about me and my family, that was looking after our interests as citizens, has been controlled by a hostile foreign entity for over 100 years. And they abandoned the Constitution over 100 years ago. Any pretense of following the Constitution. And they bullshitted us and propagandized us, about how important the Constitution is and they're following it. And the whole time, they built a corrupt doppelganger government that isn't it's based on thin air. It's based on nothing but their say-so, but their word. And this is what Trump is drawing out. He's drawing them into the open. Come fight me. Come tell me I cannot fire you. File lawsuits and claim to the courts I cannot fire you. Come and fight me. I knew we were going to get here. Sooner or later, we were going to end up here. Hey, let's see a show of hands. I just asked this on Twitter, so about 50 minutes ago. Who sees Trump losing this fight? Given everything you've seen over the last 7 months, how many of you out there think Trump gets his ass kicked by Jay Powell and Lisa Cook and at the Fed and Susan Maneras and all these people at the CDC who are telling him, go fuck yourself. We're not leaving. You can't fire us. How many of you see Donald Trump losing this fight? Well, I don't. I myself personally do not see Trump losing this fight because he has prepared the ground very carefully for this. Put a lot of time and effort and thought into it. Okay. The time is right to draw these people into a courtroom where it's going to be settled by the courts. There's several things that the globalist cult always had control of, that they've never allowed themselves to be questioned like this. They never allowed themselves to be maneuvered into this kind of position before now. Some people say, what difference does it make that, Pulte, I'm saying his name right, Bill Pulte, the guy that's the head of the housing, and the one that's filing all these charges, making the referrals to Pam Bondi, who was filing the charges against Lisa Cook and others and Letitia James for mortgage fraud. And people say, well, this doesn't mean anything. All these people are audited all the time, right? You're not going to learn anything new, right? I'm like, man, you really do not understand how the game has been rigged up until now. If you think any of these people are audited before now, they controlled the auditors before now. You understand that? How do you think Nancy Pelosi and all these other people in Congress, you think they're audited? You think they've ever been really audited? Huh? Of course not. They control the people up until now, the people that do the auditing. Friends don't audit friends. Cult members don't audit fellow cult members, all right? That's one reason loss of control is so frightening to these people. It only had to happen a couple times. So what are they doing? So there's my brother coming in my rescue. Thanks, bro. Pulte. Okay, Pulte. See, I read names. I've never really heard it pronounced because of my deafness, so I don't hear it right. So I end up saying it the wrong way. Pulte. Okay. The people trying to make light of this, oh, Pulte's not doing anything. There's any value here. We're not going to learn anything. It's just off the show. It's not going anywhere. Well, let me explain something about where I think where this is headed. Okay, I'm not going to say I think this is headed. Let me explain where I know this is headed. Because Pulte himself is showing you. If you go and follow his account on X.com, he said he came right out and said this yesterday. You know, when you engage in mortgage fraud, that leads directly to tax fraud. Well, think about it. Why do people engage in mortgage fraud? What's the point? Why do it? Well, you're generally either hiding, you're doing one of two things or both things. You're hiding income so it won't be taxed, or you're generating income that you don't want taxed. Right? Okay. So you're laundering money to yourself. You don't want that taxed. Okay. There's a reason people do this. So you investigate somebody for mortgage fraud. What are you going to end up doing like night follows day when you investigate that person for the mortgage fraud? Well, they're going to examine their taxes. And what does examining their taxes lead you to? Hmm. What's a deep dive into Lisa Cook's taxes or Letitia James's taxes going to lead to? Wow. Where's all this money coming from? All this undeclared income. Where'd it come from? The people have this idea Nancy Pelosi gets audited. She's a member of Congress. She does stock trading. She and her husband, they make millions. Somebody's got to be, checking the books, right? Well, I'll put it this way. Nobody's checked the books. Start over. I'll put it this way. When it comes to Nancy Pelosi and all these people like Bob Menendez and all these corrupt people up there, just in our U.S. Congress now, nobody's checked their books. Not really. They make voluntary disclosures of some things, and other things they tell you to fuck off. Okay? And nobody makes them show anything that they don't want to show. They controlled the people that did the auditing. And they are, Nancy Pelosi is able to stand up there and, whenever she's asked about stock trading, she just rolls her eyes and she gets upset and she moves on. But no, I have to understand this. There has never been a serious audit of Pelosi and her husband's finances. Go look. I'm telling you, it has never happened. But that's impossible. The issue of her stock trading, I don't know where all this money's coming from. Now they're worth however many, $100 million or whatever, it's $180 million or whatever it's combined. How is that possible that nobody's ever audited them? Well, they control the auditors up until now. And you can't just come in and say, for no reason, hey, I just feel like auditing Nancy Pelosi right now. You got to have a reason. You got to have probable cause that will pass public muster. one leads to another, leads to another, leads to another. So what happens when you pull on that thread of mortgage fraud, which, from what I understand, a whole lot of people up there in DC have been doing? These swaps. This is almost like the rigor. This is what you do. This is the easy way to make yourself some good money and to hide your income and not be taxed on it. Keep it all. There are a lot of people up there doing this. So how do you open the door at long last after 100 years of these people pretending pretending we have a constitutional government when we don't? Okay, and 100 years of hiding their shit, all the illegal money that they've been hoarding and stockpiling for themselves. They've never been audited. Okay, 100 years of that. All of a sudden, it's all under threat because somebody is getting their foot wedged in the door and they're getting ready to pry that damn door all the way open. It sounds so harmless. Oh, what's a little mortgage fraud? Well, you get caught doing mortgage fraud, you'll get caught during tax fraud. And when you're investigated for the tax fraud, all of a sudden the auditors are going to have to start tracking, well, where's all this money coming from? You didn't declare this as income. Where did it come from? And new vistas of understanding are going to open up for some people. How many properties do you think Nancy Pelosi and her husband own? You think they're watching the news cycle for the last 2 weeks ever since this Lisa Cook thing popped up? They're watching maybe they're a little bit nervous. Adam Schiff and all these other people that have been involved in. I mean, I know it sounds weird, okay? People have been selling classified secrets to the enemy. They've been pocketing money for leaking classified national security information. And that they've been ordering assassinations. And they've been planning pandemics. And they've been rigging elections. And they've been starting wars and creating terrorist groups and disguising them as radicalized Islamists and setting them loose on the Middle East and killing hundreds of thousands of people. But you're gonna nail them on mortgage fraud. Cool story, bro. I know, it sounds bad. I sound like that character in Guardians of the Galaxy. Kurt Russell. Yeah, I gave your mom that cancer. Yeah, I know that sounds bad. Okay. But look, it'll work. It'll get the job done. And then they never saw this coming. Everybody does this. Everybody does. What's a little harmless mortgage fraud? Well, this is how crooks think. We're all crooks. There's too many of us. They can never get us all. Yeah, crooks think that way. But this will work, I'm telling you. You indict them for mortgage fraud. You force them into court. You get their income and their financial records audited. And so you're looking for the mortgage fraud, and you know this means, and you can prove it in court at that point, that they didn't pay taxes on any of this, so it's tax fraud now too. So now you need to examine what other income might they have been earning that they were not reporting and paying their taxes on. I can't think of anything better to hang this cult of Luciferians with than their own fucking income tax they saddled all of us with back in 1913. So it's like a poetic irony to this. that they're all gonna be nailed. That door is gonna swing open, and all this shit they've been doing, all the money they've been raking in and hiding, is gonna be exposed because they didn't pay any fucking federal income taxes on it. It's like the ultimate plot twist, man. And so I'm on board with it. I don't care how it gets exposed. I don't really care about the process. But yeah, if they end up using simple mortgage fraud, you indict about half of Congress. You know, half of the people that work in these federal agencies or sit on these federal boards. If that's how they end up indicting these people and dragging them into court and auditing their taxes, at long last, these fucking people get audited. And we find out where all their money has been coming from and what they've been doing with it, how they've been hiding it. I'm all for it. Go mortgage fraud. As long as the job gets done, that's what I want. But that's just this gaseous idea people have that, oh, they can never get away with that. Surely somebody's been auditing these people. Time and time again, how many times during the Great Awakening do you wake up to something and say, oh my God, how in the world they gotten away with this for so long? I mean, it's mind blowing if you're in the vaccine space and you understand what SIDS is, sudden infant death syndrome, and you understand the massive harms these shots chock full of aluminum and mercury have been doing to the kids for decades here in America. And all of a sudden it dawns on you, holy fuck, how have they gotten away with this for so long? Well, look no further than their control of all the federal agencies in the health space, the medical space. Look no further than their control of the mainstream news media. They on a brainwashed public that's sleeping inside of a matrix. You be you should not be surprised at the insane levels of shit they can do to people and not get called out on it. So yeah, they've been killing American kids for decades with these vaccine programs. Nobody ever questioned it. Nobody was allowed to very loudly question it for decades. And they've been raking in all this money and hiding it and basically looting our country for 100 years. How'd they get away with that? Well, nobody was allowed to really question it. Nobody's been allowed to really audit any of them in an organized fashion. Okay, and here's the game changers: Trump and Pam Bondi and Kash Patel and Ed Martin, Eagle Ed Martin. Okay, here's how they're about to change the game. All these swamp rats are about to be audited in an organized fashion for the very first time in U.S. history. And when that happens, it's over. All these people are going to prison. So I've been telling people for some time now, you're probably going to end up by the end of the year saying about, oh, maybe anywhere from a quarter to 1/3, maybe even a half of our Congress arrested. And when they're arrested and they're proven to be criminals, every one of them is going to be removed from office. Bob Menendez, I mean, you think he was doing anything unusual? Bob Menendez was doing shit that probably half the Senate's doing behind the scenes. Taking bribes. You think Bob Menendez declared any of those gold bars they found in his closet as income on his tax forms? Well, no. No. No, he didn't. It sounds so innocent and simple, and it sounds so disappointing to a lot of people. Mortgage fraud. Who gives a shit? I don't give a shit about mortgage fraud. It's like indicting a murderer for not paying his taxes. Remember that line from The Untouchables? You want to indict you want to indict a murderer for not paying his taxes? Come on. But it worked. And listen, there's a big difference. I talked about this in a tweet yesterday. I hope most of you follow me on X.com, by the way. There's a world of difference between Al Capone, what Al Capone was doing, and what these assholes in D.C. have been doing for 100 years to this point. Al Capone just ran a simple criminal enterprise, okay? Sure, it was illegal what he was doing, gambling, bootlegging, you know, sports books, okay? That's debatable whether people should gamble. I don't really have a problem with it. Debatable whether people should drink. I don't have a problem with it, but it was illegal back then. So, yes, his bootlegging income was illegal, right? And, running whorehouses and houses of prostitution. Yes, that's a really bad thing. And what was the other thing? Sports betting. Hey, I don't really have much of a problem with that. Some states it's legal, but all this stuff back then. We would kill people to defend these enterprises. All right, yes, that was a bad thing. But I'm trying to make a point here. Okay, don't jump me. All right, sports betting. How bad is that? If it's a house of prostitution and there's consenting adults and they're paying their own money, okay, yes, that's bad. But how bad is it really? Okay, and bootlegging, okay, illegally smuggling liquor into the United States and selling it and not paying any taxes on it, okay, is that the most evil thing a guy could do? Right, so compare what he was doing, and he died in prison, okay, for this. Compare that, and mostly, of course, he deserved to die in prison because he killed people. He gave, to protect his rackets from the other guys running similar rackets, and you have to protect the territory. So, yes, he murdered a lot of people. All right. I'm just talking about the basic criminal enterprises he was running. How bad were they actually? Okay. On a small scale, just in the upper northeast area. Chicago. He wasn't in New York. He wasn't in LA. He just talked about the Chicago area. Okay. And running you have to have some access to Canada to run the liquor. This was before drugs and all this other stuff. Very small scale. Now, compare that to what these people have been doing for 100 years in Washington, D.C. They're running a vast theft ring that steals millions and millions of dollars that dwarfs Al Capone's operation probably by a factor of 1,000. And over the years, they've expanded this criminal enterprise that they set up. Everybody in America is running around thinking we have a constitutional government when in reality, the constitutional government was replaced back in 1913 with a very similar looking criminal enterprise in disguise. Okay, and they've been expanding that criminal enterprise for 100 years into human trafficking, human and child sex trafficking. They've expanded it into drug trafficking. They've expanded it into weapons trafficking. They've expanded it into the Forever Wars mission. And they create paramilitary units they send out around the world to cause conflicts, and then the central banks keep increasing the debts that these nations hold to them. They keep getting more and more control so they can loot more and more from these countries that they have control of. Okay. An ever-expanding criminal enterprise. This dwarfs anything Al Capone was ever doing. And what they get Al Capone on? Well, they got him on income tax evasion. The guy who ordered dozens of, probably 30 to 50 people, personally, he himself murdered, okay, to protect his bootlegging, prostitution, and his gambling, and things of that nature. Here you have people, this globalist cabal, this criminal enterprise, you think they haven't ordered assassinations around the world? How many people have they killed compared to Al Capone? And I know it sounds ludicrous when it's first proposed to you. Let's nail these people on mortgage fraud. But you have to understand mortgage fraud is the thing that opens the door to all of these other things. Mortgage fraud leads to tax fraud. And then the tax fraud leads to where's all this money coming from? And then that leads to holy shit, an international global criminal enterprise that's trafficking in humans and children and sex and drugs and arms and literal terrorism, creation of new military conflicts so these rich oligarchs can make more money, kill hundreds of thousands of people. So right now, people are looking. I see the comments on the social media. Oh, mortgage fraud, he gives a shit. But you got to understand, these people have never been audited, and they cannot afford to be audited. For years and years and years, Nancy Pelosi and her husband, the hammerhead, have managed to avoid that one thing that will completely expose them. And right now, I guarantee you, every denizen of the swamp is following Bill Pulte. They're closely watching what's going to happen with the TT James and Adam Schiff and Lisa Cook. So intensely interested. Mortgage fraud. They just indicted a sitting Federal Reserve governor for the same damn thing I've been doing for decades with all of my various properties that I own around the country. Oh shit. Mortgage fraud leads to tax fraud. So we're gonna start looking into how much income should I have declared based on accurate mortgage form. How much money did I hide from federal taxes just from the mortgage scheme that I did? But there's no way I can limit them to just that. If I end up getting indicted like Lisa Cook and they come in there and they look at my tax records and look at my financial records, I'm gonna have to explain where all this freaking money came from. And I can't really explain where it came from or how I have it or where it went. I don't want these people looking through my financial records. These people know I'm gonna say something very controversial here, and this is gonna be recorded for posterity. This will be up here on Rumble for as long as Rumble exists. I'll put it by my Substack. It'll be there for as long as my Substack exists. A lot of these people know they will not be able to finesse their way out of this. The moment they have to hand over the tax records, it's over. There was no way to explain what the record shows. And a lot of these people are going to take the easy way out. And they're going to save the taxpayers a lot of money. Because the ego of a globalist cultist, the ego of a Luciferian, will not allow them to undergo any type of a fall like this. We all know about the type that rather than go to prison, they will kill themselves. Can you imagine going from a U.S. congressman and you're driven everywhere and you have a staff that takes care of you hand and foot, and you're an important somebody? You're Mr. or Mrs. Congressman or Congresswoman, and you know that you're going to be spending the rest of your life in prison. So they come look at your taxes. So they're not going to find the mortgage shit the mortgage stuff you were hiding. This is Donald Trump. This is Pam Bondi. This is Cass and Don. This is Eagle Ed Martin. They're gonna find it all. And you are gonna go inside for all day. And a lot of these people are just gonna say, hell with that. I'm not going through that. You're probably gonna see a lot of this over the next couple of months as this expands. Because everybody knows. Everybody knows. All the swamp creatures were doing this. This was the easy, fast way to cheat the system, and they were all doing it. And it opens the door. And a lot of these people are sending money back, and they're laundering money for each other. They're going to be led from the congressmen to the NGOs to their family members on the board of the NGOs. I mean, this stuff is going to be tracked. And even if they can't track it, even if you were clever about disguising your tracks, you still got to explain where that $1 million came from that you didn't report as income. Where did you get it from? It took a long time. I mean, think about one way to think of this is we've been involved in a 10-year war against the globalist cult of Luciferians who at first were laughing at Donald Trump when he came down that golden escalator in June of 2015. They were laughing at him. They were mocking him. But they don't laugh at the man now. They're terrified. They can see the train coming for him, and they're stuck. They're stuck on the tracks. What do? It's gonna be a tough question for them. Do I want to do the Pope walk? Do I want to wear the orange jumpsuit and show up in court for my arraignment? Do I want to be released on bail? Do I want to have the media following me around everywhere while I get ready for my trial? Do I want to have to sit and face a jury when the evidence is damning? It's my own financial records that are gonna hang me, okay? And they start exposing not just the fact that I was a swamp creature engaging in a little clever bookkeeping to save myself a couple $100,000 by engaging in a mortgage fraud scheme. All this other shit I was involved in, they're gonna find it. Maybe my lawyers can't keep it out of the mortgage case. And then they're going to start filing, indicting me on all the other shit I've been doing, that I've been involved in, all the money laundering, the trafficking, all of it. The mortgage case is going to start it, but it's going to be the least of my worries. Do I really want to go through that? And I don't think many, some of them are going to say, no, I'm not going to go through that. They've done nothing over the last year but watch their cultural influence decline, their societal influence decline. More and more people wake up. Their mass media propaganda no longer has anywhere near the effect it used to have in this country. It's only able to influence a smaller and smaller audience that is older and older. As you see, all the Tesla events, when they were doing the Tesla things and some of the more recent demonstrations around the country, it's all very old white people. They're going to be gone in another 10, 15 years. They've lost their grip, and it's about all of it's about to slip out of their hands. If they still had the kind of power and control and influence they had 10 years ago, yeah, they'd say, sure, man, I'll take my chance in court. I think I can beat this rap. Let's say they get indicted in December, January 2027. It was 2026, excuse me. Let's say they get indicted in January 2026. They're going to look around. They're going to go, I'm not sure I can beat this, even in D.C. now. You're about to see some things happen in D.C. now that Trump has federalized it. I don't think that D.C. circuit's long for this world. I think some things, I think people are already talking about being melded back into Maryland. Everything they rigged over the last 100 years that allowed them to do all of this without being not only not being exposed on it or criminally pursued on it, they were never even investigated or questioned about any of this for 100 years. Okay, all of that is changing, and they can't stop it. They can't stop it. They weren't even allowed to be questioned about it. Not really for 100 years, much less investigated or exposed and indicted and tried in court. And it's coming. I understand it's not here yet. There's people every day say, well, nothing's going to happen, nothing's going to happen. Well, you can take hope in the fact you can actually see all the pieces on the board being moved into position. And some people think, at the last minute, they have this idea of Trump as some kind of pussy. He's a pussy. He'll lose his nerve at the last minute like he always does. And he won't do anything. No, I don't think so. I don't think Trump is a pussy. I think Trump is a vindictive son of a bitch. And these people went after his family. And these people tried to blow his head off more than once. So I don't see him losing his nerve. He's gonna pull. They pulled the trigger 100 years ago to deliberately defraud the American people, oppress the American people, exploit and loot the American people by very deliberately creating a fake government out of thin air, abandoning the Constitution and taking the bare bones of what was left of the real federal government and cannibalizing it and creating an entirely new unconstitutional and illegal infrastructure, which they have expanded for 100 years at this point. He's deliberately destroying the unconstitutional government infrastructure, and he's changing it back into a constitutional government. And because so many people have woken up, so many people know what's going on now. Their chances of surviving this unscathed, reaching the end of Trump's term, 2029, has all but evaporated. I just don't see them making it, to be honest with you. I don't see a lot of fake news organizations are not going to make it to 2029. They've lost their money. It's like the whole cultural shift is happening so fast. You know, so many people wake up and they start to realize they don't have to live like this. They don't have to be exploited like this. They live under an oppressive system, but they were told, "Now this is your constitutional government. You voted for this. You voted for these people. What are you complaining about? You don't like it? Get out there and work harder. Work harder and get new people elected." And they sniggered in your face for 100 years, didn't they? Trump and Tulsi Gabbard are getting ready to drop a couple bombs on their election rigging infrastructure. And believe me, this is not run independently of the federal government. The whole election rigging they've been doing all over the country, down to the county level, yes, our federal government is involved in it, USPS and some other agencies. Okay, yes, they've all been involved in it, the election rigging. So they bullshitted Americans for 100 years. You voted for this. This is what you wanted. Shut the fuck up. What are you complaining about? You voted for these people. And then use neocon media, the conservative neocon media. They gaslight the hell out of all of us. We're just going to have to try harder to win that next election. Because those Democrats are just so entrenched. Their brainwashed voting base is just so large. We're just going to have to work harder than ever to get a GOP uniparty person into that seat rather than a Democrat uniparty person. And I myself and a lot of people fell for that shit for decades. So they laugh at you and they tell you, you voted for this. When they know they've been rigging our elections all of our lives. We didn't actually vote for this. And we do want a constitutional government. We do want a government that actually works for us and for Americans and seeks American interests first. That's what we want. And ever since Donald Trump came down that golden escalator, day in June 2015, despite all their efforts to stop it, more and more people wake up and realize, holy shit, our government doesn't work for us. It literally does not work for us. We literally have not been electing these people. And that's why our country's in the condition that it's in. And they use mainstream mass mainstream media, propaganda, mass propaganda to lull us into complacency. This is the best you can hope for. All you can do is hope to get the right people in office to manage the decline. Hey, remember when Obama actually came out and said this shit in his first term? Well, of course, while he's on his foreign apology tour, well, the best we could do, just kind of manage the Western decline. Yeah, I came out and said that shit. In other words, manage the American decline. Slow it down as much as we can. But the bend of history, the curve of history is inevitable. The West is on its way out. So we're just here to manage the decline. And we were all lulled to sleep. We were all led to believe that this was inevitable. Just like, and it's amazing watching people in D.C. and hopefully soon in places like Chicago, in New York City, L.A., San Francisco, wake up and realize, holy shit, the fear is gone. I can have to go outside and walk around and not be afraid. This is amazing. It's like a weight, an oppressive cloud has been over this country for well over 100 years now. And all of a sudden, Trump is showing people, I can lift that cloud. You don't have to live like this. They keep telling you this is just the way things are. They're lying to you. Well, they're telling you this is the way things have to be. You can't get any better than this. We're trying so hard. You know, it's ludicrous watching these assholes like Brandon Johnson in Chicago and Gavin Newsom over there in California. We're trying so hard, you know, but just because we're struggling a little bit and things aren't exactly where we would like them, it doesn't mean Trump can come in here and start messing around in our cities and in our state. It's infuriating watching these people. Because I'll tell you this, you have to accept this truth. I know it's hard for people to grasp it first. Oh, they're not deliberately killing innocent Americans with these insane criminal justice policies in these cities with cashless bail and the revolving door. You know, they're just bleeding heart liberals and they're brainwashed and they don't know any better. And so this is what the system has de-evolved into. But these people aren't deliberately killing anybody. Okay. You're lying to yourself if you tell yourself this. They are deliberately killing innocent Americans. They're sacrificing innocent Americans every day. I talk about the Luciferian cult, and I know that freaks some of you out. But these people don't look at other human beings the way you and I do. They look at other human beings like cattle. You're not in their big club. You're lower than well shit to these people. You are cattle. Being fattened up for the slaughter. That's all you're good for. They can exploit and take resources from you until you die. So it's hard for people to hear this. When I talk about a globalist cult. You mean to tell me they deliberately set up a criminal justice system in cities like Atlanta and LA and Chicago to deliberately cause crime waves, knowing it will kill innocent men, women, and children? Well, yes, I am telling you that. There's nothing accidental here. None of this is organic. Oh, they meant well, but they're brain dead liberals, and this is just because they don't know how to run anything. This is what the situation de-evolved into. That's neocon speak. That's neocon speak. They meant well, but they're bleeding heart liberals, and their minds, you know, they're insane, and so not deliberately. They screwed everything up due to their incompetence and their insanity. And this is why, you know, hundreds and hundreds of people end up being murdered in Chicago every year. Bullshit! Hundreds of people end up being murdered in Chicago every year because that's what the cult wants. They want that. They are evil. That's why all these people dying in D.C. up until about 2 weeks ago. Regular murders every damn day. And the public is conditioned to believe It had to be this way because the people at the top that you keep electing now, you keep electing these people. They try so hard, but this is the best they can manage, so you're just going to have to live with it. And that's all bullshit. Trump is exposing the bullshit. He's making those people in Chicago who literally crafted a criminal justice system to encourage chaos and crime waves and violent crime all over the city so they can oppress the regular citizens while they let the criminals run amok. Trump is now making those people incredibly nervous. And I expect he might wait a couple more weeks, but eventually he's going to move. Because remember what I talked about in the last live stream, a lot of the money going into our country through Act Blue and other NGOs, and all the money comes from our tax, our treasury, So foreign entities, they loot other countries, and they send the money to these NGOs, which they then pay their staffers to help rig our elections at the county level here in the United States. That's foreign money. What is that? That's interference by a foreign entity in a U.S. election. Our U.S. elections, is the infrastructure of our election systems in the county level in the United States, is that part of our national security apparatus? Yes, it is. So I still people trying to come up with the idea, well, okay, Trump can federalize D.C. because it's got authority there. But as far as Chicago goes, or Philadelphia, or New York City, well, no, we can't do that. Well, what if by the end of September, Trump and Tulsi Gabbard have proven that every election season, a couple $100 billion of foreign dark money flows into our country to rig our elections? Wouldn't that mean that the people currently running Chicago and New York City and LA are only there because they benefited from massive election fraud? Wouldn't it also be proven that the policies that these people who win these rigged elections, surprise, not only are they accepting money from these foreign entities to rig the elections so they can win them, they also have agreements with these foreign entities about the kind of policies they'll enact while they're in office. And these policies, surprise, are not for the benefit of American citizens. They're actually placing American citizens in danger. They're actually undermining and sabotaging the public safety. What's the textbook definition of an act of war? What's the textbook definition of a national security crisis? Oh man, I don't know. I don't see how Trump's ever gonna be able to send National Guard into Chicago. Sorry. I do not see any scenario in which that could ever happen. Oh, but I do. I do see a scenario where that could happen. I'm watching it develop. It's amazing, how all these investigations started years ago, and then somebody hit the pause button, and they were paused for about 4 years or more. Now, all that very hopefully collected evidence that was sitting in certain rooms somewhere in burn bags or some other whatever bags, and now somebody just wandering in there and discovering it. It's really amazing how this is working out. And a lot of this was going to have to do with our election integrity, because The only way these people managed to implement a fake government, a fake unconstitutional government built on an unconstitutional framework after they replaced our real constitutional government, what was left of it, in 1913. The only way they managed to survive doing that up till now is that they were able to hide what they were doing, and they can't hide anymore. And they can't. The programming, the public's waking up. The programming is not working. This is the best you can hope for. You voted for these people. This is what you wanted. What happens when the American people are shown? Well, actually, no, this isn't what you want. This is what a foreign entity wants. Look how many hundreds of millions of dollars they shipped into our country that last election cycle. And one of the election cycles from 2018, 2020, 2022, 2024. Look how much dark money they shipped in here to rig our elections. No, this is not what you voted for. This is not what you wanted. All new American voters out there have been disenfranchised. You are the victims of a massive organized fraud. And every domestic person that participated in that fraud to disenfranchise your vote is a criminal. And they are going to prison. It's amazing all this evidence is collected. It's just sitting there waiting for somebody to stumble over it and find it. Apparently, casting down found a lot of the hidden room. And then later on, the bone bags are found stuffed full of documents. These were supposed to be destroyed. Wow, amazingly enough, nobody destroyed them. And now at that last cabinet meeting, Tulsi and Trump are chit-chatting about documents found about the rigging of the 2020 election. Just very helpfully sitting there. That she and her 17 intelligence agencies are now digging through, and she'll be giving Trump a briefing on that when she's ready. And then when Trump will get that briefing, they're going to form a plan of action. I'm pretty sure they already have the plan of action. But you gotta love it when a plan comes together. How do you show the American people you didn't vote for this? Not only did you not vote for this, you've been laboring like a slave under an illegally constituted government since 1913. Because that's the year they took what was left of the constitutional government and they gutted it like a fish, and they scooped it and hollowed it out. And then they inserted their own illegal extra-constitutional framework, and then they spent 100 years turning you into debt slaves and running you ragged and exploiting and oppressing you. But I'm going to end that, and he is ending it. And so it looks like it's all completely unrelated. Over here, inspiring Lisa Cook, and she's saying, hell no, I won't go. And over there, he's ordering Jay Powell to lower the rates, and Jay Powell won't do it. And over here, he's firing the CDC chick, and she's saying she won't go. And over there, Bill Pulte is filing mortgage fraud charges. And over here, Eagle Ed Martin is looking into this mortgage thing and the tax fraud thing. Oh, but it's all unrelated. See, well, yeah, actually, it's not. It's not unrelated. Why nobody else is connecting it for you? I don't know. Maybe I'm unique, I guess. But you can see the trend lines. You can see where things are headed. If you step back and take the 40,000-foot view, and that's what the news cycle, the daily, weekly news cycle is actually built. It's created. I think the best way to say this. I recently discovered something about Alice in Wonderland. from the Q drops. Alice in Wonderland is actually a CIA brainwashing technique. It's called the Alice in Wonderland technique. What they use the news cycle to do to you is they throw so many different fearful and chaotic and confusing things at you all at once to literally distort your perception of reality. And this is just one reason why they work so hard to lure as many people as possible in the digital age, which really launched in the early 90s. To lure as many people as possible into a fake digital world. Now, they were always able to shape people's perception of reality via their propaganda using the radio and the TV and the newspapers and magazines and books and movies. Okay. They had a lot of practice with that from the 1890s and the 1900s with Bernays introducing breakfast is the most important meal of the day, the soft sausages and stuff. Okay, mass media propaganda, mass media brainwashing. They had perfected that by the time the 90s arrived. But they quickly realized, as powerful as it is to shape people's perceptions of the world and control them via television, newspapers, magazines, books, and so on, and the radio, powerful as that was, the digital space was going to be the ultimate expression of this. The digital space where people can have certain websites promoted to them to read, books promoted to read, certain TV shows, certain books and movies, and also control of the creation of a national public square where the hall monitors are really in charge, and they're strictly controlling what the public is talking about, what they're concerned about, the impressions that can be created. These people instantly grasped that in the early 1990s when they were forming the internet. And they spent the last 25, 30 years creating fake social media apps. Hold on, let me rephrase that. They spent the last 20 years or so creating spy tools for spying on citizens, monitoring their conversations, spying on them, and even more importantly, influencing them and programming them. They created these spy tools and disguised them as social media like Facebook, Twitter. Because they knew if they get the majority of Americans on to this digital space that they control, they have rigid control of it. They can take that societal brainwashing and programming to a level that they had never even been able to dream of having before that time. Okay, and this is what they were so excited about this, the new digital space. And you have to understand what it is. You have to be careful on it because there are people trying to influence you every damn day. I've said many times, some of you think I'm like a broken record. Social media influencer is a curse word. There are a lot of people out there. The moment you turn on social media, get on the digital space, there are hundreds of people trying to influence you, trying to frame things for you, trying to sell you ideas, trying to hand you narratives. And they work hard to get you to trust them. They work so very hard because they know if you don't trust them, well, then they're not going to take it. They work very hard to build their credibility with you so they can get into a position to try to brainwash you. I said all that to say this, okay, the digital space, all right, is where they were strong. But something happened. Something started happening. Even though they had massive control of the digital space, a great awakening happened. And there's some of their own techniques that they were using to brainwash the public were actually flipped on them to awaken the public. And it spread like wildfire beginning in late 2017. Some of you know what I'm talking about. It became worldwide. And a lot of people started waking up. So our own type of psychological operations that they used to keep people asleep was flipped on them to wake people up. And they're now watching the results of the Great Awakening continue to manifest themselves every day. And Donald Trump is now in a position because he has enough public support. He's pretty sure the public is ready for this next step. He can come out and say, we haven't had a constitutional government since 1913. They killed it back then. Whatever was left of it, they killed it in 1913. And they put in its place this monstrosity. And they used their mass media to bullshit you about what they were doing. And now we're at the point where you have literal people that the Constitution says work for me, and they say I can't fire them, and they're refusing to go. So I'm going to show you that these people have created a government that does not follow the Constitution. I'm going to show you that. And these people have been clever at avoiding having this discussion. They've been so very clever at manipulation. Best way to say that. They had the game so rigged they never even had to have this discussion. Okay, not in 100 years if they had to have this discussion. Do you work for the president or not? Are you in the executive branch or not? 100 years they avoided it. They could do that because nobody was ever allowed to seriously question it. Nobody else was ever, they never had an outsider in that Oval Office before Trump. So nobody was ever in a position to bring this about, to bring about a situation where you have a CDC head and a Fed people saying, I don't work for the president. He can't fire me. I will not resign. I'm not going anywhere. He's bringing two things out. They're members of a cult. They think they are above the law. They are above the Constitution. They're not under the Constitution. They don't have to follow it. So they're all members of a cult. And two, we have an unconstitutional government. We have for over 100 years now. And I'm going to make these people come out and explicitly argue in court filings that we have an illegal government. They have no choice. I mean, what are they supposed to do? Leave? I started this broadcast, which I'll be ending in a couple of minutes. Thanks to all, 1,500 of you that are watching, making me a part of your Friday afternoon. They can't leave. I said that at the beginning. The people that are in these jobs at the Federal Reserve, the CDC, they have certain people that they cannot hand over the keys. Their system only goes, the fake government I've been talking about, the bastardized, corrupted Frankenstein framework that they constructed. Frankenstein monster they constructed on the bare bones they stripped from our constitutional government in 1913. Okay. It only runs when they're in charge of it. If Trump replaces them with somebody, Trump is ordering them, Trump and RFK Jr., as far as the CDC goes, and Trump and Howard Lutnick and Scott Bessent at the Fed, Trump is ordering them to do things that the globalist cultists that run the CDC and the Fed, they don't want to do that. If we do that, it harms the machine that we've spent so many decades and invested so much in building. He's literally telling us to start dismantling our machine, to start taking it apart. Fuck you and fuck you, I won't do that. He's maneuvered them into his position, in this position. He left them there. He understood. He knows who Moneris is. You understand that? He knows who Jay Powell is. He knows who they represent. And he knew, think about this, he knew what would happen when he ordered them to start taking apart the extra constitutional framework that they so carefully hid from the public and that they've been operating under for over 100 years. He's telling them to dismantle it. He knew how they would react to that. He knew they wouldn't say, oh, yes, sir, you're the president. I give up being a member of the globalist cult, and now I will begin taking this apart because you told me to. He knew they wouldn't do that, and they're not doing it. So we've reached the point where this was always going to get to. The point where he ordered them to do something. They said no. He fires them. For Jay Powell, take a little longer because remember, Jay Powell, technically Trump hasn't fired him yet. He's only fired Lisa Cook for cause for the mortgage fraud. But if Jay Powell lets her stay there, and he too says to Donald Trump, fuck, you can't fire a member of the board, get out of here. We don't work for you. Doesn't that give Donald Trump cause for firing Jay Powell also? I believe it would. So he's literally maneuvering these people into a position that they've managed to avoid ending up in for over 100 years. They have to literally come out and say, I am a card-carrying member of a secret government that isn't constitutional, that's been running DC in secret for 100 years. I don't answer to you, and now, you son of a bitch, I really hate this. You're forcing me to explicitly argue in court that you don't have the right to fire me. Damn me. But this is where we're at. And I always knew we were going to end up here. Because these people don't have the option of just quitting and walking away. Their system doesn't go without them being in charge of it. The federal government of the United States has been the world's largest criminal enterprise for over 100 years. And every year, every decade, it got bigger and bigger and bigger. And they're not just gonna say, okay, you can have it. Bye. I'll be back in 4 years, hopefully when a Democrat wins the next election. They can't do that. They can't do that. They have to stay. Not to mention, as far as the CDC thing goes, they see all the signs of what RFK Jr. and his real scientific researchers now. I mean, real scientists here. Not the fake shit, the fake guys under Fauci. I mean, real scientists now. They fully understand through all the signaling, all the activity that's been going on for the last 7 months, what RFK Jr. is getting ready to do. He's getting ready to show the entire country what they have been deliberately doing to our kids in America with their vaccine schedules. He's getting ready to show them the fact that they had all the data showing the immense harm that was being caused, and they hid it. They hid it. I made a post the other day when Moneris was refusing to go. I said, look, another high priest of the death cult trying to hang on by her fingernails. And she is. She's trying to hang on by her fingernails. You see, these people know what happens to them. All these high priests of the death cult, the only ones who've ever been allowed into the Holy of Holies in the center of the CDC and the HHS, where all the real data is hidden about what the vaccines, the mercury and aluminum filled vaccines have been doing to kids, that's the most for decades. Only the most committed priests of the cult were allowed to ever handle these holy relics. You understand what I'm telling you? Every sign points to what RFK Jr. is getting ready to do. And the globalist cult thinking it's held in. And Susan Moneris and Dr. Peter Marks and Dr. Anthony Fauci and Francis Collins and Peter Daszak, all these people that were involved in all of this shit for decades and decades, they know what happens to them if the lid comes off of this Pandora's box. You will never get that lid back on again. And America's parents, when they realized what they were tricked and defrauded and manipulated into doing to their own kids because they trusted these fucking people. Every single person in that medical class, that medical industry that participated in this, that was pretending they were looking out for the health and the interests of Americans instead of making a lot of money and reducing the world's population. Okay, every single one of them knows it's over for them. It's over. If this shit gets out the door, you know how many parents in America would beat these people to death with their bare hands when this gets out? I vaccinated my kids. I trusted these people. My son's autistic, or God forbid, they had a child that died from SIDS. Yeah, they've known decades what SIDS is. Don't you listen to that bullshit. They know it's over for them if this gets out. She can't walk away. You understand? She can't walk away. None of them can. The moment they're not there minding the store, it will come out about the vaccine injuries and deaths they've been covering up for decades. They have to stay there, minding that store, guarding that information, keeping it from coming out. And so as you watch this develop over the next couple of days, just keep that in mind, what you're watching here. This is literally the high priestess of a death cult who knows what they've been doing, what they've been hiding, what they've been covering up, and she is desperate to delay, hoping for some miracle, something. to stop this. But she cannot walk away. She cannot do that. She has to stay here. Because we can all see RFK Jr. is about to drop it off. The moment he has all the ducks in a row, it's going to happen. And when it does, none of these people will ever be able to walk down the street again. I mean, I don't even think I can imagine it, the total fucking fury of America's parents who've been vaccinating their kids on the advice of the medical experts for decades and decades, as the shots grew from like 5 or 6 in the 1980s to currently like 70 plus on the current vaccination schedule. They trusted these. The amount of sheer rage is, I can't even imagine it. And it's coming. And right now, Susan Menarez is playing Roblox. She's formed herself into a Roblox, and she's trying to prevent it. And you have career people at the CDC all doing a demonstration outside, all supporting each other as they fight off the evil Trump and the conspiracy theorist RFK Jr. Keep watching this play out. There's a lot of things in play here, but I want you to focus on the main things. We have an unconstitutional government. It's been unconstitutional for a long time. And the people who are in certain powerful positions right now literally are extra constitutional, and they know it. And they're being forced to come into court and demonstrate this. And that's how Trump beats them. That's how he's going to beat them. Because when it gets to SCOTUS, hey, SCOTUS, is it even constitutional to have a Federal Reserve, a central bank? Well, no, it's not. Hey, SCOTUS, is it even constitutional to have a CDC? Oh, well, no, it's not. Hey, SCOTUS, is it even constitutional to have a Department of Education? Well, no, not really. I tell people, in 10 years, we're not going to recognize this country. I say that because I really believe it. Yeah, there are a million ways the fake Frankenstein monster, unconstitutional government that they've had over us, ruling over us for 100 years, there are a million ways that find to limit and hold back and suppress Americans. A million ways. And when it's gone, I believe it will be gone by the time, it will be completely gone by the time Trump leaves office in 2029, January 20th, 2029. I don't think he's going to run for a third term. He's not planning on being president until he's 96. Sorry, folks. By the time he leaves in 2029, that cloud hovering over us is going to be gone. And life in this country is going to change in so many different ways. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be amazing. I'm trying to picture it right now. With the looting has stopped, that 700 billion or whatever it is that they ship overseas every year, foreign aid, it's going to be staying right here. That alone, okay, it's going to have a dramatic impact. And that's not even factoring in the growth of the economy and the tariff revenues that are coming in to pay for that much smaller government when Trump literally cuts it probably more than in half by getting rid of all the unconstitutional shit they've added to it since 1913. Yeah. Looking forward to it. Anyway, I've gone over, so thank you everybody for watching and listening to me babble for 2 hours and 4 minutes. I hope you all have a great weekend here in the beginning of the American Golden Age.